Hello there, it's Scott Harrison again. Welcome to the next part of our 7 Layers of Security mini-series on the Grey Matter Talks Tech podcast. Our podcast for dev and IT enthusiasts. This episode is all about endpoint security. Let's look at some absolutes. Your employees are working from everywhere. Coffee shops, home offices, airports, client sites. They're using laptops, smartphones, tablets, and sometimes their own personal devices. Each one of those endpoints, those devices that connect to your network and access your data, is a potential entry point for attackers. Think about it. If you can have the best firewall in the world, you could have the most sophisticated network security. But if an attacker compromises a single laptop through malware phishing or a lost device, they're inside your perimeter. Your endpoint devices are literally on the front lines of your security battle, and they're scattered across the world sometimes, even in uncontrolled environments. Whether you're protecting a small business or enterprise infrastructure, understanding endpoint is essential. So let's get started on this, starting with what is endpoint security? Any endpoint is any device that connects to your network, if it can access data or resources. This includes desktop computers, laptops, smartphones and tablets. Servers, they're endpoints too. Point of sale systems, medical devices in healthcare settings. More importantly in the future and over the last few years, IoT devices like smart cameras or building management systems come under this. Even virtual machines in cloud environments. Basically, if it has an IP address and it connects to your network, has access to your data, that's an endpoint. Endpoint security is the practice of protecting these devices from cyber threats. It's about ensuring that each endpoint is secure, making sure it's compliant with policies, and it's unable to be used as a launching point for any attacks against your broader environment. Why is it important and why is it challenging? Well, it's because endpoints are distributed. They're not all sitting safely inside your office behind the firewall. As I said already, they're literally everywhere. You have less physical and network control. It's very diverse. You're not just protecting one type of device with one operating system. You've got Windows, Mac computers, iPhones, Android devices, Linux servers. Each platform has different security mechanisms and vulnerabilities. Unlike servers in a data environment, user-controlled endpoints are used by regular people who might click suspicious link, install unauthorized software, plug in random USB drives, or lose their devices, which means they're constantly at risk. Endpoints are where users interact with email, browse the web, open documents, and they download files. They're all activities that expose them to malware, phishing, and other threats. Let's talk about modern components in endpoint security. Firstly, an endpoint protection platform, or EPP. That's your foundational defense. It's what used to be called antivirus, but has evolved beyond that. Modern endpoint protection solutions include signature-based detection that will identify known malware by comparing files against a database of any malicious signatures, and it catches known threats, but it can't detect brand new malware variants. Behavioral analysis, and that watches how programs behave. If something starts encrypting files rapidly, that's ransomware behavior, or trying to steal credentials. Means it gets blocked, and if it's a never-before-seen threat, it's crucial because attackers constantly create new malware variants to evade signature detection. Machine learning and AI that can identify malicious patterns and anomalies without reading specific signatures are needed, and these models learn what normal looks like and they flag deviations. Application control that determines what applications can run on endpoints, and you might allow only approved applications block anything that's an unknown executable, or it might require administration approval for new software. Device control manages what can be plugged into endpoints and connected, blocking USB drives that could introduce malware, and it will prevent data from being copied to unauthorized external storage. Web filtering that will block access to malicious websites, phishing sites, and inappropriate content before users can interact with them. Secondly, endpoint detection and response, or EDR, and there are other forms of this such as XDR as well. They focus on detection and investigation. While endpoint protection platforms try to prevent threats from executing, EDR assumes that some threats will get through and focus on finding them quickly. It is continuous monitoring, recording any endpoint activity, any processes that run, files that change, network connections made, any registry modifications, and it will create a detailed forensic timeline of everything happening on each device. This enables threat hunting, where security analysts can search across all endpoints for any indicators of compromise. Show me all endpoints that connected to this suspicious IP address in the last 30 days, or find any PowerShell scripts that match this suspicious pattern. EDR can also enable automated response capabilities. That's like isolating compromised endpoints from the network, killing malicious processes, or deleting malware files, all remotely and instantly. Third-party mobile device management, or MDM for short, on smartphone and tablets. These require specialized management because they're fundamentally different from traditional computers. MDM allows you to enroll devices and enforce security configurations like requiring screen locks and encryption, managing applications by pushing required business apps and blocking any risky ones, and the remote wipe access to corporate data if devices are lost or stolen. For any BYOD or bring your own device scenarios where employees use personal devices for work, MDM will help create secure containers that separate out corporate data from the personal, allowing you to manage work resources without invading employee privacy. Fourth, encryption to protect data at rest. Full disk encryption will ensure that our device, if it's lost or stolen, it means the data can't be accessed without an encryption key. Solutions like BitLocker for Windows, FileVault for Mac, and native encryption on mobile devices are essential and effectively also free to use. That's what comprehensive endpoint security is. It's multiple layers working together to protect that device and, by extension, your entire organization. So why do you need endpoint security? Well, it's what the threats are and it's what happens when endpoint security fails is the important factor here. It's an understanding that endpoints are the number one attack vector in modern cybersecurity. According to various industry reports, over 70% of successful breaches involve endpoint compromise. Why is that? Because that's where the vulnerabilities are most accessible to the attackers. Major threats from endpoints, definitely malware or ransomware. They're designed to specifically run on an endpoint device. An employee opens a malicious email attachment and the laptop is infected. The malware might encrypt all the files and demand the ransomware money. It might steal credentials. It might log keystrokes or even use the device to attack other systems on the network. They might even establish a backdoor for persistent access or exfiltrate intellectual property and customer data. Ransomware has become a billion-dollar criminal industry. Attackers typically gain initial access through an endpoint compromise, a phishing email, or an unpatched vulnerability, even stolen credentials. Once they're in there, they spread to others and eventually encrypt everything, leaving organizations to choose between paying millions in ransom, losing critical data, or suffering extended downtime. Further to this, a growing trend is insider threats, both malicious or accidental. Internal employees may occur on endpoints. They might use their unauthorized access to steal data before they leave a company. An innocent employee might accidentally upload confidential information to a personal cloud account or click a sophisticated phishing link. Remote work has amplified all these risks exponentially. When everyone worked in offices, you had physical security and network security helping protect endpoints. Now endpoints are distributed across home networks and everywhere else in the world, many with minimal security. It means your corporate security perimeter has essentially dissolved, making endpoint security the new perimeter. Ultimately, every protected endpoint is a potential entry point. Every lost device is a potential data breach. Every unpatched vulnerability is an open invitation. Endpoint security is not optional. It's a foundational layer that makes everything else possible. Without it, you're not just vulnerable, you're practically defenseless against modern cybersecurity threats. To give you an example of what does effective endpoint security look like? Well, example 1. Deploying comprehensive endpoint protection for a growing company. Let's say you're a company with 150 employees using Windows laptops, some Macs, and various mobile devices. You can deploy a modern endpoint protection platform like Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, ESET Protect or Sophos. You then configure real-world, real-time protection to continuously scan files and processes. When an employee downloads a file, it's scanned before execution. When they browse to a website, the endpoint protection checks if it's malicious. You can enable behavioral monitoring that watches for suspicious activity. It's a process that starts encrypting hundreds of rapidly classic ransomware behavior. It's then automatically blocked and quarantined, even if it's a brand new ransomware variant never seen before. Configuring application control with a whitelist approach. Only approved business applications can run. Anything else requires administrator approval. This prevents employees from accidentally installing malware on unauthorized software that could introduce a security risk. You set up your web filtering to block down malicious sites, phishing pages, and high-risk categories. When an employee clicks a phishing link in an email, they've blocked it with a warning message instead of landing on the fake login page where they might enter credentials. Example 2. Implementing EDR for advanced threat detection. Your endpoint protection will block most threats, but sophisticated attacks can and will slip through. That's where EDR comes in. You enable EDR capabilities, and every endpoint now records detailed telemetry, every process executed, every file created or modified, every connection made, every registry change, your user login events, and PowerShell scripts execution. To give you a real-world scenario, the security team receives a threat intelligence report, then a new attack campaign targeting your industry. The report includes indicators of compromise, or IOC, specific IP addresses attackers use for command and control, file hashes of malware, and suspicious PowerShell command patterns. Your security analyst then uses EDR to search across all 150 endpoints. Show me any endpoint that connected to these IP addresses in the last 90 days. Within seconds, they discovered that one laptop in accounting made a connection to a suspicious IP address 3 weeks ago. They pull up the forensic timeline and see user opened malicious Excel document on September the 8th. A macro executed and downloaded additional malware. The malware then established persistence by creating a repeating and scheduled task. It's been quietly exfiltrating financial data every night at 2 a.m. Your analyst immediately isolates that endpoint away from the network using EDR, stopping any further data theft. They then collect forensic evidence for investigation and deploy a remediation script that removes the malware. They then search for similar patterns across any other endpoints to ensure that the threat hasn't spread. Without EDR, this compromise might have gone undetected for months, with continuous data theft causing massive damage. Example 3. An automated or 24/7 human-led incident response. Your EDR system detects a suspicious activity on an employee's laptop. It's attempting to connect to a known malware command and control server and has started unusual file encryption activity. The security analyst sees the alert and clicks Isolate in the EDR console. Within seconds, the endpoint is disconnected from the network and unable to communicate with other systems or spread ransomware, but can still reach the EDR console for investigation. The analyst examines the forensic timeline, identifies the malicious file, and deploys a remediation script that removes the malware completely. It deletes the persistence mechanism and closes the vulnerability that was exploited. You can then verify that the system is clean, restore the network connection, and the employee is back to work. The entire incident, detection, isolation, investigation, and remediation can take 45 minutes instead of days or weeks, and the ransomware never spreads beyond that single endpoint. And without endpoint security and EDR or managed detection service and response, where someone's going and monitoring and fixing this stuff for you, that single compromised laptop or server could have spread ransomware across your entire organization, encrypting file servers and databases, causing days of downtime and potentially millions in damages. You can definitely combine these examples and a combination of technical controls with the human awareness in Layer 1, creating a comprehensive protection network. Your users become an active part of security defense, rather than just being a vulnerability to manage. And to the conclusion, endpoint security from the ground up. Your endpoints are your front line. They're your most exposed and vulnerable assets. They're where users interact with the digital world and where the data lives and flows, and where attackers focus their efforts. Comprehensive endpoint security measures, and they require multiple layers, working together, prevention with endpoint protection platforms, detection and response with EDR, MDR, mobile device management, encryption, DLP, automated patching, or even going as far as zero trust access controls. But no single technology is enough. You need defense in depth. The good news is that modern endpoint security solutions are more powerful and more automated, and they're getting more intelligent than ever before. The challenge is implementing them properly, maintaining them consistently, and creating a culture where security is everyone's responsibility. Hopefully, that's given you a snapshot into the importance of endpoint security. If you'd like to book a meeting to discuss security in more detail, please email info@greymatter.com. Subscribe now so you don't miss out on all future episodes covering the rest of the layers and the conversations with security experts on trends and best practices.